In one of the nights, Iris takes a folding knife from the kitchen, gets into her car, and sets off, tears filling her eyes as she looks at the little toy boat she brought along. Soon, Iris reaches a nature reserve and heads toward the cliffs, where there is a memorial dedicated to the child who died in that very spot. Gazing at his photo, Iris mourns the little boy, then walks to the edge of the precipice, intending to voluntarily go where her child now resides. But at the very brink, she suddenly stops, unable to take the final step. Unexpectedly, a man appears beside her. He says his name is Richard and asks about the tragedy that has occurred. He has no intention of talking her out of her decision because he, too, has experienced the loss of a loved one. Once, after a fight with his beloved girlfriend Chloe, he got nervous, crashed his car into a cliff, and Chloe died. Now Richard blames himself for the tragedy. Iris listens to his story and even begins to sympathize with him. However, Richard is displeased by that because everyone felt sorry only for Chloe. Meanwhile, he couldn't move for 3 months and lived with the help of medical devices. Iris understands Richard because their son also died due to the parents' inattentiveness while they were busy with their own pursuits. Her husband was carving names on a tree, and Iris was gathering flowers when their boy fell from a great height. Now she doesn't want to go on living, as if something inside her has broken. Suddenly, Richard stands up, ready to leave the cliff. Iris realizes she no longer wants to jump and follows her new acquaintance back to the cars left at the park entrance. Richard has parked his car close up against hers. She points this out, and the man walks around her vehicle as if about to help, but suddenly pulls out a stun gun. When Iris is shocked by it, she loses consciousness. The woman comes to her senses, tied up in the back seat of Richard's car. He warns her not to bother calling anyone, since there's no phone signal in the mountains, and there's no one who can help her. He laughs at her pleas to let her go, taunting her with the little toy boat belonging to her son, which he found in her car, hoping to completely break her spirit. But then she suddenly remembers the folding knife, pulls it out of her pants pocket, opens it, and begins to slowly saw through the ropes. To distract her captor, she starts asking questions about his family. Richard, however, shifts the conversation to her dead son. As for Iris herself, he plans to take her to his cabin in the woods, where they will have a wonderful time, and he will braid her hair. But at that very moment, Iris frees her hands and shatters his daydreams with a knife strike. The wound turns out to be superficial, yet Richard loses control of the car and crashes into a tree. Iris escapes the vehicle. However, Richard grabs her. Eventually, they both end up tumbling onto the road, each on opposite sides of the car. Iris frees her legs, but has no idea which way to run. Richard also gets up, annoyed that she ruined his perfect plan. He's angry he didn't check her pockets. At the same time, he's surprised by her resistance, since just an hour ago she was ready to end her own life. Though soon she will start feeling the effects of a drug he injected to ensure she couldn't escape. Before long, she'll lose the ability to move and speak, so he advises her to stop resisting. Nevertheless, the young woman runs off into the forest. There, she starts a timer on her watch so she won't miss the moment when her body fully shuts down. She tries to get as far away from the road as possible, but her body begins to fail, and Richard's voice sounds ever closer. Soon her body starts to go numb. Iris spots a hollow under the tree roots and hides there. Just then, Richard's voice sounds very close, but not hearing any movement, he passes by. When it seems he's lost her, Iris suddenly realizes she's hidden in an anthill. The insects crawl into her nose and eyes, and she can't stand it, rolling out of the hollow. Hearing her scream, Richard rushes back as Iris throws herself into the river. Enraged, Richard yells after her that she'll drown soon anyway, but Iris struggles to stay afloat with all her might. At last, she drags herself onto the bank, where her body becomes fully paralyzed. Iris spots some kind of structure nearby and soon hears the sound of a lawnmower operated by an older man. He turns her over and notices that although she can't move, her eyes are focused and aware. He suggests they communicate by blinking, once for yes, twice for no. Then he begins to ask questions. Before long, the man realizes Iris needs help. He brings over a wheelbarrow, loads Iris into it, and wheels her to his cabin, intending to give her first aid. However, just as he starts examining Iris, there's a knock at the door. He's about to open it when he notices Iris blinking rapidly, looking terrified. Still, the man opens the door, and standing there is Richard, begging for help in finding his wife, who was injured in a car accident. The homeowner asks Richard to wait outside while he goes for the phone, but Richard brazenly enters the house, checks all the rooms, and finds the empty wheelbarrow, though Iris is nowhere in sight. Richard insists he lost his phone in the crash and can't contact anyone. Growing angry, the cabin owner warns that he'll call the rescue services himself and report an intruder. Then Richard begins to cry, saying in truth his wife is mentally ill. He has lovingly cared for her for years, protecting her from any trouble. If the police find out Richard couldn't manage her, they'll send her to an institution and never release her. Moreover, Richard partly blames himself for the accident because he allowed her to drive and yelled at her harshly for a driving mistake. As a result, she hit a tree. He banged his head and lost consciousness, and when he came to, the woman was gone. But what scares him most is that she might slip into catatonia, a condition in which she loses the ability to move and speak. While Richard is telling all this, the older man looks at Iris lying under the sofa, unable to decide which of them is lying. He remembers his own wife, who took care of his health, but he was inattentive and allowed her death to happen, after which he was left alone. So he decides to take Richard's side. However, just as he begins a sentence about having deceived him, Richard's phone, supposedly lost in the accident, starts ringing in his pocket, and the cabin owner realizes who the true liar is. Richard drops his act and demands to know why the wheelbarrow is in the kitchen. The old man admits he found a paralyzed woman and took her to the shed, not wanting to leave her in the house until rescue arrived. But now he asks Richard to take his wife and leave, as he intends to simply forget this incident. Richard promises that's exactly what he'll do, but first he demands the phone. The old man pretends to comply but shoves Richard, causing a cabinet to fall on him. While the man dials 112, Richard manages to break free and attacks him. At first, the old man has the upper hand, but Richard grabs a knife and plunges it into the homeowner. Then he brings in a can of flammable liquid from the shed, douses everything inside the house, and sets it on fire, failing to notice the faint tapping of Iris's reviving fingers on the floor. He's about to leave when Iris manages to grab a window blind cord. Richard sees the curtains move and returns to the house. He finds Iris, loads her into the old man's pickup truck, and drives away from the burning house, blaming her for pushing him into murder. His monologue is interrupted by a phone call from his daughter, excitedly telling him that she and Mom miss him and want to come to the cabin since he's been going there so often lately. Richard pretends to be thrilled by the news, but is actually barely restraining himself from yelling at the girl. On top of that, the truck is nearly out of gas. Richard is forced to stop at a gas station just as rescue vehicles speed past, heading to the burning cabin. He disguises Iris by putting a cap on her head and goes inside to pay. Left alone, Iris tries to get someone's attention, but her body refuses to cooperate. Still, she manages to unfasten the seatbelt and remove the cap. A passing child notices this, but before he can alert his mother about the strange lady, Richard returns. Even so, the woman sees Iris's immobile form. Richard takes her back to the scene of the morning accident, where his car still stands, and begins to repair it. By this point, Iris's fingers are starting to move. Then a highway patrol car pulls up. It turns out the concerned woman at the gas station called the police after all. Richard tries to explain it all away as a misunderstanding, but the officer senses something is off. Richard's face is battered, and Iris, sitting in the pickup, appears strange, so Richard claims his wife is, as usual, drunk. They recently lost a child, and she can't recover from the grief. Richard recounts Iris's real story, and upon hearing about her son, Iris begins to cry, making the officer nearly believe him. But then Iris's voice starts to return, and she faintly pleads for help. Plus, right in front of her lie a syringe with some substance and plastic zip ties, convincing the officer that something illegal is happening. He doesn't get a chance to react. Richard kills him with a heavy chain. Then he puts the body in the patrol car and sets it on fire. Richard drives off, blaming Iris for the officer's death. She suddenly recalls his story about the clinic and suggests that's when he went insane. But Richard believes it was only when he saw the dead Chloe that he understood God's purpose for him. Iris reminds him how much he loves his family and suggests he just leave her on the roadside since she knows nothing about him and can't direct the police to him. But Richard drives her to a lake. On the shore, Iris manages to grab the syringe and stick it into his leg, but she lacks the strength to follow through. Richard takes his knife, puts Iris into a boat, and rows out to the middle of the lake. Sensing the end is near, Iris asks Richard to take her son's toy boat from her pocket. When he leans in, she pulls out his knife and plunges it into his neck. He yanks it out and grabs a gun, but Iris pushes him out of the boat. Richard tries to climb back in, but Iris snatches the gun and fires toward him. He vanishes underwater. After some time passes, Iris is lying in the boat while Richard swims toward the shore. However, the boat starts taking on water and begins to sink. The little toy boat floats on the surface of the lake as Iris emerges onto the pier. Later, she sees Richard, still alive on the shore, and unexpectedly thanks her would-be killer because now she has realized the value of life. Strangely enough, for a film about immobility, the picture turns out to be dynamic, with vivid characters, surprising twists, and a moral that, though simple, remains indisputably true. Life is precious, even if you don't believe it.